My name is Tembi Aris. I am a medical intuitive. I use alternative techniques to diagnose and treat illnesses. I've done this for over the years, and I've successfully diagnosed and treated people with the most complicated of illnesses, which have baffled even the best of some of the medical specialists. People call me Dr. Alternative out of endearment. The health industry, or health, has got two dimensions: the alternative dimension and the medical dimension. But unfortunately, these two dimensions don't talk and they don't collaborate, to the detriment of the recipients, that is the patients out there. I am the epitome of these two dimensions.
Join us on their journey to better health and renewed hope. This is Dr. Alternative.
As you have seen the headlines, those that haven't seen it yet in the news, Trump has thrown a curveball, and everybody is running around with panic and questions and where do we go from here? So our show today is going to be looking at this, try and navigate this journey from here henceforth. Are we worse off than we were before we got the ARVs, or are we actually better off? Stay with us as we explore this big topic today, and welcome to our show.
Mr. President, you said, so on Truth Social, you said that you were going to cut aid from South Africa. Will you plan to cut aid across other African nations, and why South Africa?
No, it's only South Africa. Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
And on the Fed.
As you know, I've got the young one, and because these are the people that are directly affected by these things, so it is imperative, therefore, that they be the ones that drive our discussion today. So over to you, Luxolo.
Thank you. Good day to the wonderful viewers. I go by the name of Luxolo Wakanondlwana, and today is where we unpack the breaking news of President Trump, who has cut with immediate effect the grants that he was supplying with in terms of the ARVs to our youth in SA. Now, I just want to start off on the origin of the ARVs. Where do they really come from?
Where do they come from? ARVs are an invention of European and American countries, United Nations, United States of America, and you name them. They were invented to kind of curb the effects of HIV, not to kill the HIV, but to curb its effects so that it does not kill people fast enough. Okay. But now maybe a person, before we even move forward, maybe we can look at what is HIV, okay? Because most people still wonder what it is, or maybe the majority of people do know what it is, but the question is, where did it come from?
True.
Because we're sitting with a lot of pathogens or viruses or scavengers that are man-made, that are produced in the laboratories. Is it one of those that were produced in the laboratory, or is it a natural phenomenon? Well, if you start there are two main schools of thought as far as its origin, that is the HIV. Firstly, there are people who say it is a natural phenomenon. It's naturally occurring virus. Whatever may have disturbed the ecosystem has actually given rise to its emergence. but others are saying it comes from the simian immunodeficiency virus, which is a kind of virus that's very much like HIV, but which does not attack human beings, but which infects chimpanzees, which infected chimpanzees. But then a subsequent question to that is, how did it then affect, where did the chimpanzees get it from? And also, how did it get to humans then, if it was from chimpanzees? So there are those questions that have got answers that are hanging, or which have got no answers at all. And so that's where we're coming from. But now ARVs were therefore introduced by these countries. It's not an African invention. ARVs are not produced by Africa, by the African continent. They're coming from outside, but they are used, they are dumped into the African continent. Yeah. And when they got introduced, they were introduced as some kind of salvation. Okay, that we could see how people were dying, and that there was no cure for HIV, and here came this Messiah, this kind of Messiah in the form of ARVs, and which was going to at least buy us time. It was not going to cure the HIV, but it was at least going to prolong the life, because if it's not kept, if this HIV is not kept, then the speed at which it kills people is quite fast. So this was therefore brought in as buying time kind of intervention. Yeah. So that's where it's coming from. But if we can just look at our South African story, because for each country, it has got its own story and its own dynamics. But if you look at us, the time it was introduced, it was during the era of Thabo Mbeki. And Thabo Mbeki was vehemently dead against the introduction of viruses, of ARVs. And his information was influenced by the naturalists or the alternative medicine. Yeah, because these people had done their own research. They could prove to him, even the way the studies were conducted, as far as scientists are concerned, they said there were a lot of variables that were not controlled. So there was no way they would reach the conclusions that it could be contained just by observing nutrition and living a healthy lifestyle, because that's what it was. Yeah, it was the case. And that was also during the time of Dr. Manto Shabalala Msimang, who was ridiculed to a point that her nickname became Dr. Beetroot. Yeah, because she was really pushing the natural methods. So that's where we're coming from. But then the pressure was too much. The pressure from treatment action campaigns, the pressure from politicians, the pressure was big, But Thabo was the kind of a president that
was very calm.
He was he's got his own personality, He was not swayed by all this up until he was kicked out of his position as the president. Then he had no power. Then the ARVs. During Thabo, Kgalema Motlanthe, who took over from Thabo, although it was just a brief holding of that office, but he is the one that actually allowed for the ARVs to be introduced. So that's where we're coming from with the ARVs. Whether this was a good stance or not, that's something that we're going to discuss as we go along.
Most definitely.
In our show today. So that's where they're coming from.
Most definitely. One would argue that with the introduction of ARVs, at least it has changed a lot than people who were back then were dying ridiculously. So do you really think like ARVs being introduced at that time was really helpful in some point?
Well, an alternative practitioner, I think it's obvious that I would side with Thabo. And that is not a baseless assumption. Because if you look, if for instance we were to go with the belief that the virus comes is a natural phenomenon because of the disturbance of the ecosystem, it follows therefore that the natural methods would be the best method to look at to deal with natural things. Now, if I may give you an example. Now, if you look at how God has created his creation, be it animal, humans, and plants, those are interrelated. We need one another. We need one another for our existence. And with the three types of kingdoms, we don't need any outside influence, or when I say outside influence, any foreign phenomenon to come and disturb this. Because God has created He has created food, He has created medication, He has created all the kinds of commodities that we have within nature, that you find even something as simple as time of sleep. That if you look at this continent, our time of sleep is different from up because they've got a different clock. We've got our own, but we all controlled. That's why when you live here, when you stay here, the time for sleeping is in accordance with the circadian rhythm of this hemisphere. But once you travel overseas, you develop what is called the jet lag, because your body must then adapt to the different circadian rhythm, because everything is controlled. Everything is controlled. So God made a perfect creation, a perfect ecosystem. So the solutions come from the same creation. Problems that emerge, they come from the same creation. Even within the body, what we say is that the body is in a position to fix itself, to heal itself. All that we do, we equip it with the creation to be able to heal itself. So therefore, where am I going with this? If you look at the ARVs, the ARVs are foreign objects that come to the body. They are not part of the creation. I mean, even if you look at the drug itself, if you were to analyze the drug, the different types of drugs, and see what they are made of, you will actually run, because how deadly some of the things. That's why they have got such side effects and all that. Doesn't mean all bad, but it's most of the stuff that constitute those drugs and type of medication. It's foreign objects. It's not stuff that is from nature. So, and it's foreign to the body, because the body knows. The body knows. If you take a spinach, the body knows what that is. The body knows. It will give it, I mean, your iron. The body can recognize, here's iron, because that's how, like I'm talking about the ecosystem. But once you bring something that is not made from nature, then the body does not recognize that. Then you find what it's going to do, it's going to react. Either it makes you allergic, or you develop certain some reaction, because the body does not recognize this. So that's what happens with these introductions of these kind of things to the body. So now coming back to your question as to whether the ARVs have not at least helped. Okay. I would say if you look at the impact or its impact, that if I give you, if you've got a headache, and I give you a pill that's gonna numb those nerves that are giving you that pain, and it fixes it now. And then I come with my own thing. That's not just gonna fix you immediately, but which is going to make sure you never get that headache again. But it's not gonna make you feel the immediate relief. But maybe it's just gonna be a slow relief, but you're never gonna be bothered by that headache again. So, which is it gonna be? Which one would you think is more beneficial to your body?
Obviously, it's going to be the second one. But then you'll be really influenced to take the first one because you want to be cured.
To get rid of the pain.
Right now.
Yeah. But then you get rid of the pain and the pain comes back. Then I give you again, then the pain comes back. So it keeps coming back to a point where I must change you from that one and give you even maybe a stronger. Because that body, instead of being able to deal with it by itself, through natural methods, it's dependent on this. And then while this is numbing, it's creating other problems. Maybe you end up becoming an addict, because people who become drug addicts, some of them it's because of prescription medication. True. It's not like they're taking cocaine or anything. It's from prescription medication. True. But you keep taking and taking until you end up depending. So that body, So what I'm getting at is the same formula of ARVs is that we're trying to contain the effects of HIV so that it doesn't become AIDS fast enough. But in the process, we are really finishing that. But because the example that I also used some time back was a door where you've got rats behind. You don't see the rat, but once you have to keep on standing against that door. But once you open that door, all those rats they just flood your house and they take over. But they were there. You were not dealing with them one by one. True. You were just blocking the door. So that is what the ARVs do. They block the door so that you buy time up until the virus says, I'm strong enough to bring that door down. Then I'm going to come and finish you up. But they do, they block the door. Whereas the natural methods are saying, don't block the door. Strengthen yourself through these methods and keep that door open, because with everything that is at your disposal, which God has given you with your nutrition, you're going to be able to deal with this guy and keep that guy in check. True. So he's not going to be in a position to overcome you, because you're strong enough to be able to deal with it. It doesn't mean the virus is cured. No, it's still there. But it's just like that one rat that if it comes, you can just trample on it, because it's you're strong enough to be able to deal with it, as opposed to you just blocking the door and saying behind the door they're just doing their own thing up until they're strong enough to open the door. So even though this is a very simple or analogy, but I'm just simplifying it enough so that people understand what the ARVs do. They just provide the door. True. Up until they're strong enough to make that door fall over. So now with Trump, because Trump has been giving keys to lock the doors. Now he has removed those keys. Now there's no one who's now standing at the door. So the rats,
they're panicking.
The rats are, the door is open. The door is open now. So that's what's making people panic. How bad is the situation that we need to look at? And are we in a position to eventually overcome it?
Most definitely. But I also want to touch on the power the ARVs has had throughout these years, with now Trump pulling out the plug. What sort of impact now leaves South Africans?
Well, like I was saying that, in our previous show where we touched on the need for collaboration. Okay. Now, ARVs, if ARVs were created such that they can, while you are in a pretty bad state, while your viral load or your CD4 count is too low, because remember, when they check, for instance, the state of your HIV, they look at your CD4 count, that is your immune system, because they also recognize that with a good, strong immune system, you are in a position to nail the HIV to a point where the viral load is brought down and the virus is undetected. It doesn't mean it's dead, but it's undetected. So they recognize, they acknowledge you need to have a good CD4 count. CD4 count means your immune system, your ability to fight this guy. And then they measure your viral load. Your viral load is the burden of the virus within your blood, within your fluids, So when you're sitting with that amount of viral load, then your CD4 count definitely gets affected. It drops very low. But if you maintain a viral load that is almost non-existent, then you're okay. Then you don't need ARVs. ARVs are only introduced to people whose CD4 count is very low and whose viral load is very high. So if ARVs, that's now my opinion, if ARVs were created such that they boost your CD4 count and they lower your viral load, and once it reaches a certain point, you take it, you are taken away from it. I would say go for it. Right. But ARVs is a permanent a solution. They will say, once you start with them, you continue with them. Yeah, so that's the problem, that once you start it, you stuck with it, because your body is relying on those ARVs to defend it or to protect it.
True.
So if it would come up with that kind of a viral, ARV, then I would say, wow, well and good. Okay, because remember, while these ARVs are working hard to arrest the virus, the side effects, because they're heavy on the kidneys, they're heavy on the liver. So the side effects are doing their own thing on the other hand. So which comes to what I'm saying, therefore, that it's not something that is meant to be taken perpetually. It should just be at the beginning, where it just gives you a chance to pick up your CD4 count and lower the viral load. Then after that, you are on your own with your nutrition and whatever. If we could have a system where we work in that way, the alternative and the conventional, that would have been a perfect system.
Right.
That would have been a perfect system. But the chances of, like I indicated earlier, that everything is politics. So the aim of the virus was not to help curb, but was to control. Because once you're on it, and they're controlling you. Let's go for a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to discuss this further.
If you are fructose intolerant, you should not eat fruit. Otherwise, it will harm your health extensively. This is a genetic disorder directly connected to ADALase enzyme deficiency. Diseases including tissue cancer.
My name is Rachel. I am 35. Well, I was diagnosed with GIST, which is gastrointestinal stromal tumours. It's really rare. It's a form of sarcoma. It starts in like the connective tissues, and for me that was the lining of my stomach.
Liver disorders and mental disorders. How do you know if you are fructose intolerant? And even better, what food you must eat?
Welcome back. We are talking about a big topic and subject, where, we're talking about a very big subject. And when we went to a break, we were looking at our ARVs. Have they made at least a small impact, or were they good for us in the first place? We discuss this further and keep exploring the options and the implications.
True. And I want to stay with the implication now. I just want to ask, what does this mean to health, that we are in this position now, and what are the implications?
Yeah. Actually, for me, it takes us back to what Thabo said in the first place, that this kind of virus and the methods that we can use to deal with it, we don't need to take the ARVs.
True.
We don't need the ARVs are bad in terms of how they will affect our health. They are bad because of they are pushing the agenda of the Western countries.
True.
To control. Because, I mean, look, if you look at the way Trump has done it has just demonstrated how much power these people totally
Have.
exactly
That's
have
true.
on us. Because for him to just say, close the tap, we busy just like a baby, suckling and suckling. And what does it do? He did not even give time to say, okay, I give you 6 months to wrap up your programs. He said, cut with immediate effect. So, because he knows how much power he has got. During 9/11, there are a series of books. People can actually refer to these books. They are called Anastasia of Siberia, written by a Russian. His name is also Vladimir, okay, but it's not Putin. Because, this is a Russian guy who discovered this Anastasia lady. And I don't even want to go into detail on the kind of knowledge and information, the richness of information that this lady has, which Vladimir managed to get hold of. But the part that I want to bring is she was analyzing the 9/11 scenario. And she was saying the impact of 9/11 America did not get the full brunt of what was planned in the 9/11 scenario. And she said, the way these people that planned to bring America down, they were controlled by a group of people, but these people planned the project such that they would assign a particular task to one person or to these people, and then assign to this one and to this one. But in your group, or if you are the champion of that particular, you would not know that there are other people that are assigned to do a certain task. So you are only confined to your own, and this one confined to their own, But the people that are controlling it are the ones that are orchestrating the whole thing. So the ones that were to blow meant to blow the airplane, and the ones that were meant to blow the White House and the military base and all, they did not know each other. The one for the plane, they had their own, and these ones they had their own, and this was their own. But this was timed and orchestrated by the people who were controlling it. But then she brought the part that I am bringing in here. She said there was one that was planned. I can't remember because it's some time back when I read those books. But there was one that was planned for United Nations Summit. And this particular guy was placed in a hotel, which was gonna house the summit, most of these statesmen. But what he had a chemical that would be rubbed on the tap, in a hotel, in his room. All he needed to do was just to rub the chemical on the mouth of the tap, because it had a pulling effect. So that poison or chemical, when you open the tap and the water comes out, would actually filter backwards to the taps and go back to the source of the water. Meaning all the people that were going to take a shower, they would all be affected by that small thing that would be rubbed on the mouth of the cup. And then those people, the chemical would be such that when you go back, because you're a statesman, you go back to your, its window, period, would allow for the summit to take place and for people to go back. And it would spread by you coming into contact. And you don't need to touch people, but just within a certain radius. So you come into a contact, meaning if it's Ramaphosa, President Ramaphosa, when he gets to sit in a meeting with all his ministers, then the ministers with their departments, he said that is the one that would have wiped out humanity. But they never managed. They managed to track that guy down before it could actually happen. But then she was saying the only way this thing would work was the tapping system, where you have a tap. Yeah. But if there were no taps or no reservoirs that were like that, and you are getting water from the natural, it would have no effect whatsoever. So what she was pointing out was that natural phenomena and creation and how God has worked these things, you are not in a position to think you can actually kill creation and kill, unless you take it away from its environment. It's just like if you look at the GMO foods. GMO food, you cannot kill people if you or destroy nature completely by just putting maybe some chemicals and whatever, because those that survive, the seeds will continue. But if you take the GMO and take them away from the natural environment and take them and produce like the GMO food is produced, then you have tampered with the natural chemistry. And therefore that food is no longer the food that the body recognizes. Now then you're in a position to kill people through those GMO. And whereas if it's still nature knows how to deal with something that is foreign or it will kill, But if it's in the laboratory, then because look at the food that is generated from these setups. We're getting now seedless grapes, seedless, and then we like them. And we say, I hate these peeps, you know, seedless grapes, seedless watermelon, seedless everything, seedless. How are you going to generate more of the watermelons? You're going to keep on making them in the laboratory. And what's happening? Then you're controlling. Everyone who's eating that is you controlling what goes into the mouth and what you input in those, and then you're in control. So that is what these people are doing. They take things away from nature and they create things that mimic, and then the body ends up succumbing to all that fictitious creation. But otherwise, and that's what ARVs, that's what they do. That's what they've been doing.
True.
But it doesn't, the control is not just only from that angle. You create control by making people see the effects, just like when if you look at history, when they introduced everything, like you see the mirror, they introduced the mirror, you look at yourself. These people, you know, these people, I'm telling you, sometimes it's so funny, you know, when you look at how but that's how they operate. You look at the mirror and you've never seen yourself in the person and say, hey, what was this? They say, no, it's your ancestor. They don't say it's you, because you don't know how you look before you look at the mirror. You don't know how you look. You don't know it's only the mirror that tells you, so this is how you look. But the very first people who saw the mirror, they didn't know it was them. When they look at the mirror, it's them. They say, hi, it's your ancestor. Because they know how much we believe in our ancestor. So these people have studied our patterns, behavior patterns, our mental, it doesn't mean we're stupid, but because we're such big believers and we're so devoted and committed to family life and, and all that. So they've started, so they introduce things that look good, and they make something that looks bad look good, and something that looks bad look good. They twisted so that's what Thabo was saying. No. You're giving yourselves up to their control. You don't need this. You can manage to kill this virus, or maybe even arrest it and make sure that it is not effective by following your natural way of living. Then it will not have no effect, and they will not be able to control you. But if you allow, then you're dancing at their head.
True.
So that's exactly what has happened. That they put us where we depend on them, and now they pull the plug. The body now is not in a position to fight for itself. We have made it totally dependent on this, and that's the reality. It cannot fight itself now. The rats are there, flooding the body, so it will get worse before it gets better.
True.
Okay, but we have got the capacity, the ability, and maybe even the means, because the means are natural. The means are natural. So if you look at the countries where people are totally dependent on their plantation and the whatnot, they don't need money. They don't care about money, But where we have, everything has been turned around and money has been given all the status that it has, then, and they've taken, because if you look at plants, when they took over from us, we were planting our own food. And when they got to Nongause and they said, no, your ancestors are saying you must kill your cows, kill your animals, your food, you destroy, because they're going to give you so much more. And what happened when we did that? And then they took over. Then they planted. So what did they do? They did the same thing that we were doing, except that now we had to buy. Now we had to buy. Now you cannot, you don't, now the mentality or the understanding of planting your own food has been totally eradicated. Now you believe you need, so what do? You buy your GMO seedless because there's nothing else. You don't have the land, you cannot plant, or you can, but you don't have, so it's such a big mess. Look, I don't even know how to, it's such a big mess. Even me trying to decipher it
it's definitely a huge mess, but it's clear that we've got a problem right now.
A big one.
A big one.
Yeah, we've got a big problem.
70.8 million of people that are HIV infected and that have been depending on ARVs, which are now no longer, gettable. So do you think now people are going to give a chance for sort of some alternative side points that they will probably want to take?
They will, in the absence of ARVs and other options. It's then. And I actually feel it's God's way of intervention, actually, because he has created this situation, because how else were we going to make people see that, hey, guys, you've got a better option. You don't need this. You've got better things that you can use that can make you manage this and live a happy and long life.
True.
Okay. But that's what happens. If you look at alternative is the absolute last resort. If I may also make reference to, there's a lady that came from Belgium that I got to know through Dr. Chris Barnett. Not Chris Barnett, the cardiologist, but this one also, he was a professor at the University of Free State. So I went to see him in Bloemfontein because he was producing African potato concoction, tinctures, and he took us through his factory and showing us. But now he linked me with this lady from Belgium. Now this lady was doing an HIV program, but using natural methods. She was using lemon mixture, she was using garlic, and she was using ginger, and she was using this guy's African potato. And she took a bunch of people from the clinic, but she took the worst of the worst. Those ones where you find they cannot even, the bowel, they are on nappies, they are on catheter, they cannot eat, the eyes are sunk, and they really look like ghosts already, but they're still alive. She took those kind of people. And then she was allocated a space there where they would come, and then she would also do home visits, and then she would administer these garlics and whatnot, but then do them in a certain way and even measure how these people are taking them. And she was doing that. And she did the before and after. And if you were to see them, you would swear it's not the same people, And all that they used on those people, it was just a combination of these things that I mentioned, plus this African potato. Okay. But the reason why she stopped was because of the influx of attacks that came left, right, and center. And I mean, they even blocked them from using those clinic premises. At some stage, I mean, she showed me some of the clips where she was attending to the people from the Baki that she was using, because now they were not allowed to use those premises. But even that, they were told, no, you can't put your park your car here, you're parking here. So it became so bad to have to deal now with all the opposition that she was receiving left, right, and center. And then she discontinued. So what I'm getting at is that they were doing this study to prove that if you were to take people that are sitting with such a huge viral load, where the CD4 count is below 50, and you manage to give them a turnaround, and here's proof.
Exactly.
You know, so that was just the beginning of the study, and they were willing to roll it out all over. But like I'm saying, they were never given an opportunity to continue with that.
That's good.
So that was now to prove to people that you can do it on your own.
Exactly.
You don't
that's
need this
where
ARVs.
exactly, and that's where I want us to just quickly touch on the position now of alternatives to ARVs and HIV.
Yeah. Well, this part that I've just narrated now was just an indication of, because if you look at those methods that they've used, that's all natural. There was no drug there. Even African potato, that's not a drug. That's natural. Yeah. But then how do you make people go back to understanding the value of what was provided to them, you know, through divine providence, nature, creation? How do you make them go back there? Because that's where the solutions are lying, you know. Because like I was saying earlier on, that if you look at the HIV, when they test the HIV, they look at your CD4 count, which is your immune system. And then they look at the viral load, you know, which is the accumulation of the virus in your fluid. But if your CD4 count is good enough, you don't get to take the ARVs. ARVs is meant for people where the CD4 count is really very low and the viral load is high. So otherwise, how do you get your CD4 count to be good? Through your lifestyle, through nutrition. Not by taking some drug, you know? What I'm saying is, even without anyone getting involved, just looking at the mechanics of the immune system, you need nutrition to boost your immune system. That's alternative. Of course, even conventional does champion that. But with alternative practitioners, even when it comes to, if you have to assist the body with added intervention other than just nutrition, what else do you do? Okay. But the basic is nutrition, just like the father of medicine. Socrates said, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. That's medicine. That's their slogan, you know? Because basically, if you look at the fundamentals of creation and the human body, you are sustained by nutrition, okay? So everything else is assisting that body, your immune system, your lymphatic system, to be able to make that body fight for itself. It's in a position to identify a cell that is unhealthy, and it will kill it, you know, your killer cells and all that. So what I'm getting at is that just by conventional recognizing that you need to have a good CD4 count is good enough to say, look at alternatives. You know, look at alternatives. Because if you live a good lifestyle, your nutrition is good, and so on, then you are all good to go with a good CD4 count, in which case, therefore, you don't need ARVs. Okay. So even though people have been left in the lurch by the way Trump has done it, maybe he needed to twist our necks, you know, so that we look this direction, you know, and begin to like recognize things that were there all along, you know, that after all, it's not a lost case, you know. So that's what I would say to people, that, well, because even you're gonna cry and then do what? You know,
True.
we here.
We definitely here.
We are here.
We
We are
definitely here.
here. Yeah, we've got answers. You don't have to panic. We're here. We are definitely here. So you don't have to throw a towel and try and jump over the cliff thinking, oh my goodness, we are here.
It's definitely not all lost.
It's not all lost. We are here. So seriously, solutions you can just check with us. We will give you answers. And you see, the other thing that is nice about us is that we are also even in a position to determine how bad you are, because we're not just, because remember, even with our intervention, it's not a blanket intervention. We're in a position to detect that this is where you are at, and in which case this is what you need to do. We see the level of the damage to the liver, to the kidneys, the level of viral load that you are carrying, and we've got all the protocols, that you need to be able to put you back on the road again. So not all is lost. That's where we end our show today. We hope it is bringing back some hope to many of you who thought, hey, this is it. It's not it at all. There's hope out there, and that's what we are on about. And thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Oh yeah, I think that's it. We've heard from the ma'am herself that it's not all lost. It's actually a blessing and a curse. There's still hope. So I definitely believe that there's still hope, and let's just go back to basics, to natural things. And yeah, the better it goes from here. Thank you.